iPhone, the phone that everyone loves to hate and that I love to love. But even I can admit that all iPhones are not created equal. Apple has made a lot of mistakes in their past, regardless of whether or not they can admit it. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're gonna ask the question, what is the worst iPhone ever? So I think we'll do this pretty simply. We're just going to go through all the iPhones in a couple of rounds. By the end of round 2, we should have our worst iPhone picked out. I will give my opinion, and I will also show a vote I had on Twitter as well as YouTube, so that way we can get a pretty good idea of what people think the worst iPhone is. Alright, so let's start round 1. First up, we have the iPhone 2G. From 2007, the first iPhone was too expensive and could only connect to 2G cellular networks, a definite detriment. That said, this was the first smartphone ever, or at least the first good smartphone ever, and therefore is basically void of all criticism, at least in my opinion. This is certainly not the worst iPhone. After all, it completely revolutionized the phone industry. The iPhone 3G, 2008. While it's quite slow on iOS 4 and has a cheaper design than the previous generation, it also brought 3G speeds for the first time and lowered the price significantly. Therefore, this is not in the running for the worst iPhone, although I wouldn't say it's in the running for any best iPhone awards either. The iPhone 3GS, 2009. While it didn't do anything special, it also doesn't really have any issues either, and it did bring some necessary improvements with faster processing speeds and a better camera. Plus, it was supported all the way up to iOS 6 and still performs pretty well. This isn't the worst iPhone by a long shot, and in fact, I'd say it's one of the best. The iPhone 4, 2010. A lot of you were saying that you thought this was the worst iPhone, which kind of surprised me. In all fairness, it had antenna gate. You would drop signal if your hand covered the antennas on the phone, which was really easy to do because they were poorly positioned. This was a horrible design flaw, but the iPhone 4 just brought way too much innovation for me to even consider it any less than great, with a beautiful premium design and the stunning Retina display. No, at least in my opinion, the iPhone 4 is not the worst, despite antenna gate. The iPhone 4S, 2011. The 4S had a dual-core processor, it had Siri, a much better camera, and fixed the antenna gate issue of the iPhone 4, but it was updated for too long and forced into obsolescence with iOS 9, where it became brutally slow and practically unusable. As much as I love the iPhone 4S, it is unfortunately in the running for the worst iPhone ever. The iPhone 5, 2012. The last iPhone with the classic design of iOS, which makes it a very nostalgic piece to say in the least. It was blazing fast with a full gigabyte of RAM and support all the way up to iOS 10. Even today, it still runs pretty well and has had no major issues. The iPhone 5 is one of the best iPhones, if not the best. The iPhone 5C, 2013. This phone was a bit of a mess, being a direct replacement to the iPhone 5 in a cheaper plastic body. It was the closest Apple gets to a commercial failure, but I've talked about it enough in recent videos. This is definitely in the running for the worst iPhone. The iPhone 5S, also 2013. The 5S brought Touch ID and a 64-bit architecture. Not only that, but it's fully updatable to iOS 12 and is surprisingly usable. This is, like the iPhone 5, one of the best iPhones, if not the best. The iPhone 6, 2014. Finally, Apple had a solution to consumers' desires for bigger phones with both 4.7 and 5.5 inch options. That said, the iPhone 6 used a low-grade aluminum that made it susceptible to bending and issues like touch disease. So Bendgate happened. Despite the iPhone 6 being the best-selling iPhone ever, it just may be the worst. The iPhone 6S, 2015. This one's pretty simple. Apple fixed Bendgate by utilizing a more durable build and made significant improvements in the camera, processing power, and Touch ID. This is a good iPhone. The iPhone SE, early 2016. Apple rebooted the design of the iPhone 5S with a cheaper price tag and the same internals as the 6S. The SE has been the best budget iPhone out there since its release, and definitely does not warrant the honor of being the worst iPhone. The iPhone 7, 2016. Apple removed the headphone jack and kind of didn't do much, with a similar design to the iPhone 6 and 6S. But the 7 was reliable, and I don't consider the headphone jack removal to be enough of a reason to call it the worst iPhone. Even though, yeah, that kind of sucked, but you know, what are you gonna do? It had to happen eventually. The iPhone 8, 2017. Made to be a cheaper option to the 10, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus aren't much different than the 7, except they're glass, I guess, and faster. But still, Still, they offer good value for what they are, and I think it's too early to call them bad, much less the worst, even if they aren't particularly special. And now we come to the iPhone X, the newest iPhone as of recording this video from 2017. Bringing a radical redesign, the X shocked the world with its $1,000 price tag. I was legitimately surprised by the sheer amount of hate for the iPhone X in the comment sections of the vote. People apparently don't like this phone, and the only good, logical reason I can see is the price. I honestly hadn't even considered the X for this video because it brought so much necessary innovation with a bezel-less design, an OLED panel, glass and stainless steel. This is a good iPhone in the very least, and is the most innovative thing from Apple we've seen in a long time. Sure, it has a notch, but then again, so does basically every phone in 2018. The iPhone X is not the worst iPhone, and if you think that, then that's fine, but I disagree with you for what I would consider logical reasoning. Although, admittedly, the price tag is heavy, but there's so much more to it than that, at least, again, for me. And that's the end of round 1. Let's see the lucky winners. We have the iPhone 4S, the iPhone 5C, and the iPhone 6/6 Plus. Wow, what a group. Alright, we finally narrowed this down. Which is the worst? Well, you guys have already stated your opinion, which I'll be showing right after I give mine. Maybe we're gonna agree, maybe not. I guess we'll find out in a minute. The iPhone 4S sucks so bad on iOS 9, but on the other hand, it's downgradable to iOS 6 and iOS 8, which is actually pretty nice, although it's a bit of a runaround process that isn't particularly accessible to the average Joe, which isn't great. But the 4S did bring a lot of innovation too, with Siri starting the entire personal assistant thing, even if Siri does suck now compared to competitors like Google Assistant. It's tough, but I don't think the 4S is the worst iPhone, simply because it was really good at launch. While iOS 9 is garbage, I wouldn't say it's enough to drag it all the way down. That leaves the iPhone 5C and 6. Oh boy, this could be tough. The 5C is plastic, did literally nothing new, and was just a cash grab from Apple that didn't result in a ton of sales, but it does run well on iOS 10, and wasn't a bad phone, really. It's just what was behind it that was bad. On the other hand, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus bend way too easily and have too many issues, like touch disease, to even remotely consider them half decent. They aren't much faster than the 5S, and really didn't bring anything except for the new design. But they did sell extremely well, being in fact the best selling smartphone of all time. So yeah, that definitely needs to be taken into account. Ironically, I think the 5C and 6 are kind of at two opposite ends of the spectrum. The 5C sold terribly, and the 6 sold really well. But at the end of the day, I need to choose a victor, if you can call it that, considering it's more of a loser, really, but you know, that's okay. And I'm not going to beat around the bush or anything. I choose the iPhone 5C. This is a surprise to exactly nobody, as the 5C was just pointless and didn't need to exist at all. The iPhone 5 was fine. You didn't need to replace it. I've done a lot of videos on this, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Links below if you want to see some of those videos, by the way. Anyways, the iPhone 6 had a ton of problems, but it also made Apple a ton of money. So I'm gonna say that that's a bigger success than the iPhone 5C. The bottom line is that money is the most important thing in the smartphone industry, and the 5C just did not make it. Or, I mean, it made Apple money, but not as much as they would have liked. But what did you guys think? Because while I'm almost always right, I am not completely always right, if that makes sense. It's 4 a.m. right now. All right, anyways, let's start with Twitter. By the way, you should totally go follow me. Link below. At the bottom, with 28% of the votes, we have the iPhone 4S. Next, we have at 30% the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, and at 42% we have the 5C. So you guys actually pretty much agreed with me. Although I was surprised on how close you had the 4S with the 6, I would have put the 6 at a higher percentage if I had to guess the vote. But that's fine, glad we all pretty much get along. Okay, what about YouTube? Where I apparently got a much higher voting count at 10,000. Well, let's see here. The lowest option was Other, at 9%, which I probably should have had as an option on Twitter too. Oops. At 18%, we had not the 4S, but the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. I wasn't expecting this, to be honest. I always thought people considered Bendgate to be a bigger deal, but hey, the people have spoken. With 23% we have the iPhone 4S, and at an overwhelming 51% of the vote, we have the iPhone 5C. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. No surprise here when it comes to the 5C. Overall, it looks like majority rules. The iPhone 5C has officially been titled the worst iPhone ever, because I have the authority to declare that, obviously. This is actually a good range of voters, to be honest. honest, and gives us a good idea of public perception, which is kind of neat. If you guys want to see more of these kind of interactive videos, let me know by hitting the like button on this one. Anyways, the 5C is the worst iPhone because it was pointless and a commercial failure, at least relative to Apple. So there's your answer. Sorry if you were expecting more from me, but that's pretty much all I got. Even if you liked the 5C, you do have to admit that it was in the very least a weird iPhone and probably never should have happened. That all being said, I am done here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content just like this, and go follow me over on Twitter and perhaps Instagram while you're at it. Without further delay or ado, I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time. I'm gonna go to bed now.